Ozzie Nelson looked like the friendliest father in America. The easy smile, the calm voice, the gentle advice. He was the dad everyone thought they wanted. But the man behind that smile controlled everything. He blocked his sons from going to college. He scripted their dates. He stole private family moments and turned them into TV episodes. And in 1963, when his son Ricky got a 17-year-old girl pregnant, Ozzie reportedly arranged a fake premature birth story to protect the family image. Staged hospital photos, false weight reports, a cover-up the public never saw. But what the Nelsons hid for decades finally came out, and the truth was nothing like the show. The making of Harriet, from vaudeville to violence. Harriet Nelson was born Peggy Lou Snyder on July 18, 1909, in Des Moines, Iowa. From the very beginning, her life was wrapped up in show business. Her parents were both professional actors who ran a stock theater company in the Midwest. So, while other children grew up around ordinary family routines, Peggy grew up around rehearsals, costumes, backstage noise, and traveling performers. Some accounts say she first appeared on stage when she was only 6 months old. By age 3, she already had a speaking role. That early start mattered. She wasn't slowly introduced to entertainment later in life. She was raised inside it, shaped by it, and pushed toward it before she was even old enough to understand what it would demand from her. By age 3, she was already singing and dancing in Iowa vaudeville-style theaters. The halls were often hot, crowded, badly lit, and exhausting. Touring companies moved constantly. Shows could happen more than once a day, and child performers had almost no real protection from fatigue or pressure. Still, Peggy kept going. Those years taught her how to hold attention, how to stay calm in front of an audience, and how to keep performing no matter what was happening around her. As she grew older, that early training carried her far beyond Iowa. In her teens, she moved closer to the world of New York musical theater. One of her early credited roles came in The Blonde Sinner in 1927. Even then, the work was intense. Theater life demanded rehearsal, travel, performance, and constant discipline. At the same time, she was getting pulled into a very different side of New York life. As a teenager in the early 1920s, she spent time around Harlem nightlife and the Cotton Club scene, one of the most electric and complicated worlds in the city. The music was thrilling, the energy wild, and the crowds filled with glamour, danger, and contradiction. According to some reports, she started smoking at just 13. That detail cuts sharply against the image people would later have of Harriet Nelson as the calm, perfect housewife. Then, in 1926, just before graduation, she dropped out of high school and chose performance over formal education for good. That same year, she joined the Chord Ballet at New York's Capitol Theater, earning about $25 a week. It wasn't glamorous money, but it was steady. By the time the roaring 20s were fading, she had been trained by vaudeville, sharpened by theater, and hardened by professional discipline. Then her life took a darker turn. In 1930, when she was only 21, she married comedian Roy Sedley. What should have been a fresh beginning quickly became a trap. Sedley was older, deeply tied to nightlife, and living fast in the club world of the Prohibition era. Reports suggest the marriage turned violent within weeks. Harriet was said to be hiding black eyes under stage makeup while still performing. She wasn't suffering in private and then escaping into work. She was carrying the damage right into public view and still expected to smile through it. Sedley's world also dragged her into gambling, debt, and emotional chaos. He reportedly spent nights in Harlem casinos and ran up bills that Harriet had to help cover with her own earnings. After about a year, in 1931, she finally separated from him, reportedly after another brutal beating following a show. The legal break came later in 1933, when a New Jersey court granted an annulment, using the phrase extreme cruelty. She had to survive the worst part before the law finally caught up. Meeting Ozzie, a new beginning, or a new cage. What came next was not comfort, it was reinvention. After the annulment, she rebuilt herself under a new stage name, Harriet Hilliard. That was more than a professional decision. It was a clean break from everything attached to the old marriage. Yet, even with a new name, she was still living through the Great Depression. Some accounts say she was making as little as $15 a week in dance jobs. Her comeback didn't happen because life suddenly became easy. It happened because she kept moving while broke, bruised, and determined not to disappear. Then, in 1932, everything started to shift. Harriet met Ozzie Nelson at a vaudeville job in New York. By then, she had already lived through far more than her later public image would ever suggest. Ozzie reportedly heard her sing backstage and hired her as vocalist for his band almost immediately. She began performing under the name Harriet Hilliard, and audiences responded to her voice, her looks, and her lively stage presence. Night after night, she worked long hours in packed venues, singing with Ozzie's orchestra from evening until after midnight, sometimes with radio broadcasts added on top. Together, she and Ozzie built a style that mixed music, humor, and flirtation. He chased, she teased, audiences loved it. Still, it wasn't simple. Harriet did not rush into romance. After what she had been through with Roy Sedley, caution made sense. Reports suggest she resisted Ozzie's advances for years, protecting both herself and her career. Ozzie, for his part, was ambitious, clever, and sometimes shamelessly opportunistic. One story says that in 1930, he rigged a New York Daily Mirror poll by collecting discarded papers and stuffing more than 1,000 fake ballots to push his band to number one. That hustle helped build the band's reputation. Harriet was joining not just a band, but a machine driven by Ozzie's relentless need to get ahead. Then, in August 1935, something changed. Harriet was driving alone in Texas as the band moved toward California jobs. During that trip, she confronted Ozzie about his silence and uncertainty. Instead of dodging the moment, he proposed. They married on October 8, 1935. What looked like rescue and romance would later come with its own sacrifices. Hollywood and the birth of a TV empire. By the time Harriet entered film in the mid-1930s, she already had enough life behind her for several careers. In 1936, RKO signed her to a one-year contract. She appeared alongside Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers in Follow the Fleet, singing, dancing, and holding her own in a production packed with major names. For audiences, she looked fresh, bright, and glamorous. For Harriet, it was proof that she could move successfully from one entertainment world to another. During the war years, from 1941 to 1944, Harriet worked heavily in film, appearing in a run of movies that included Sweetheart of the Campus, Canal Zone, Jukebox Jenny, and The Falcon Strikes Back. She earned about $1,500 a week, serious money at the time. Yet, even at the height of that success, another pattern was already forming. After Honeymoon Lodge in 1943, she reportedly turned down stronger solo film opportunities. Instead of pushing deeper into independent stardom, she stepped toward a more controlled future, built around marriage, family branding, and Ozzie's larger vision. On October 8, 1944, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet launched on CBS. America was moving through the final stage of World War II and into a period hungry for warmth, safety, and family comfort. The show offered exactly that. Week after week, the audience grew until millions were listening. The family sounded natural, easy, and lovable. But behind that smooth sound, Ozzie controlled almost everything. He produced the show, shaped the scripts, and carefully managed the image each family member projected. Harriet's jazz edges and more playful instincts were trimmed away so she could fit the role of the perfect wife and mother. The woman who had danced through rough theaters, smoked since her early teens, survived abuse, and fought her way back from personal collapse, was now being presented as a spotless symbol of domestic calm. Then, in 1952, the family moved from radio to television, and the illusion became even more powerful. The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet became one of the defining family shows in American television, running for 435 episodes from 1952 to 1966. Ozzie directed most of it, wrote much of it, and kept guiding every detail. The house, the jokes, the routines, all of it sold the image of an ideal American home. A replica of the family's real Hollywood home served as the set, which only made the illusion stronger. Journalist David Halberstam later wrote that Ozzie took private family moments and turned them into public entertainment. Real arguments became scripted scenes. Real emotions became content. The line between the show and life slowly disappeared. The sons who paid the price. For David and Ricky Nelson, that confusion started early and never really went away. David was born in 1936, Ricky in 1940. Their childhood was never fully their own. They joined the family's radio work in 1949 when they were just 13 and 9 years old. That meant rehearsals instead of freedom, performance instead of privacy, and work instead of a normal teenage life. Ozzie made it clear that college was not part of their future. In his mind, they had an obligation to the family business, and the business was the show. By age 16, David was already helming parts of the family empire, all while living under Ozzie's brutal rule of no mistakes. Prom nights, school events, social plans, all of it got pushed aside for rehearsals and shoots inside that fake version of their own home. Years later, David would describe his life as a double-edged sword. The success gave him something, but it took something too. It took time, freedom, and a youth he could never get back. Ricky's story was even more intense. By age 10, he was waking up for 5 a.m. radio rehearsals. Ozzie monitored his homework, watched his behavior, and even controlled his personal life. During the long TV run, Ricky was not allowed to have real girlfriends unless the situation somehow fit the show. Even dating had to pass through the family machine. Then music gave him a crack in the wall. Ozzie preferred soft crooner songs, safe, clean songs. Ricky wanted rock and roll. Inspired by Carl Perkins, he secretly brought a guitar onto the set. On April 10, 1957, he performed "I'm Walking" on the show, lip-syncing in front of around 15 million viewers. The response was huge. Verve Records signed him quickly, and soon the hits started coming. Between 1957 and 1973, Ricky scored 19 top 10 Billboard hits. "Poor Little Fool" reached number 1 on August 4, 1958, and became the very first number 1 song on the new Hot 100 chart. He was earning serious money as a teenager. Yet Ozzie still kept him on a small allowance and blocked major opportunities that might reduce paternal control. Behind the fame, Ricky felt trapped. The image, the pressure, the lack of privacy, the sense that his life had been designed by somebody else. In 1971, when audiences booed his changed look and sound at Madison Square Garden, he turned that humiliation into the hit Garden Party. The song became one of his clearest statements. It wasn't just about a bad night on stage. It was about being punished for growing up. The cover-up that finally cracked. Then came one of the family's biggest secrets. In 1963, Ricky Nelson eloped with 17-year-old Kristen Harmon on April 20th. To the public, it was sold as a sudden romantic surprise. That was the story Ozzie wanted out there. But the real reason for the rush was much simpler. Kristen was already pregnant with their first child, Tracy. Ozzie panicked at the thought that the pregnancy might crack the family's perfect image, so he moved fast to protect the brand. On October 25, 1963, Tracy Christine Nelson was born in Los Angeles. The timing alone threatened the story. A healthy baby arriving about 6 months after the wedding would raise obvious questions, so the cover-up deepened. Ozzie reportedly insisted the hospital list Tracy as weighing only about 4 pounds to support the claim that she was premature. Staged photos were arranged, showing the baby in an incubator, even though she was healthy. The image of the fragile Nelson grandchild spread through tabloids and TV magazines, and the public swallowed it because they still believed in the Nelson myth. That deception left damage behind. Kristen was pushed into the background while Ozzie focused on shaping the public narrative. Friends and later writers described her as lonely and overwhelmed during that period, expected to smile through the strain. For Ricky, the episode cut even deeper. It showed him that his father would rewrite anything, not just a scene or an episode, but real life: a wedding, a birth, hospital details, family truth itself. The tragic endings. The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet aired its final episode on April 23, 1966. The culture was changing. Audiences wanted something sharper and more modern. Ozzie wasn't ready to let go. In 1973, he launched Ozzie's Girls, replacing his sons with two college girls. It lasted only 24 episodes. Ozzie's health was failing. He was diagnosed with liver cancer in 1974. He died on June 3, 1975, at age 69. Harriet later spoke of his death with deep grief. For all the complications in their marriage, she still felt bound to him. Ricky never fully escaped the weight of his upbringing. His marriage to Kristen grew troubled. Drug problems and financial trouble followed. And on December 31, 1985, his story ended in horror. He died at age 45 in a plane crash near DeKalb, Texas, while heading to a New Year's Eve gig. The crash came after an in-cabin fire caused by a faulty heater. Harriet never really recovered from losing him. She sold the Hollywood house and moved to the family's Laguna Beach home in 1978. Her health declined. On October 7, 1994, at age 85, she died at home from congestive heart failure. David said she had never truly been the same after Ozzie died, and Ricky's death only deepened that sadness. The legacy unmasked. David lived longer, but he also carried the family burden. He died on January 11, 2011, at age 74. And the pain didn't stop with Ozzie's children. In a 2025 interview marking the 30th anniversary of Harriet's passing, Tracy Nelson, Ricky's daughter, spoke openly about the family's scars. Gunnar and Matthew Nelson, Ricky's twin sons, have also had to deal with a legacy of public pressure and image management. The timing of this reckoning matters. America has changed. Reality television has shown us how entertainment can feed on private pain. The quiet revelations of 2025 as streaming services like Paramount launched deep-dive documentaries on classic TV families have forced a new generation to look at the Nelsons differently. Suddenly, the story doesn't look like a sweet old family sitcom anymore. It looks like a warning. The Nelsons gave America the perfect family, but the real family paid for it with their freedom, their privacy, and ultimately their lives. And the mask? It took decades to finally fall.